My name is David Daniel Ball, and these are the headlines for Friday, the 6th of March, 2009. Police seize Hanson Today Tonight tapes. Pakistan identifies cricket attackers, admit security lapse. Church hits out at 9-year-old's abortion. Government ignored by shark warnings. Kuwait stuns A-League Socceroos. Ponting looks to play the pace card again. Australian dollar buoyed by China's stimulus plan. Chris Brown charged over Rihanna assault. Chris Brown hit Rihanna until her mouth filled with blood, LAPD affidavit. Whining bitches Singo launches scathing attack on advertisers. 7-year-old locked up for years by parents. Cyclone forms off North Queensland coast. Northern Territory intervention extended 3 years. Rudd clashes with freelancing Costello. And Gandhi items sell for $2.8 million. And in comments, sleeping on the job, would you get away with it? A New South Wales minister has been caught snoozing in question time, but how many of us would get away with sleeping on the job? Chris Smith certainly wouldn't. Well, Chris, actually, in fact, it's of concern for us when these people are awake. Some of the decisions they make are absolutely appalling. We would be much better off if they'd spent their entire time asleep and allowed the opposition to do the job that they should be doing. Creatures in the news, Tim Blair. You've seen the killer hamster, now meet business cycle cat, and you'll have to look at the link for that. Dangers exaggerated. Peter Roebuck last year, following Australia's decision to cancel a tour of Pakistan due to security concerns. Doubtless it seems safe on the ground in Pakistan. Conceivably there's a strange sense of peace in the streets, a beguiling calmness that contrasts with the fevered dispatches that appear around the world. And in update, Roebuck comments, all that can be said regarding events in Pakistan is to commiserate with the fallen and wish the standing the best of luck. When next the game can be played on that patch of ground is hard to assess. Everyone says be brave and defeat the cold killers with inflamed minds, but that is getting harder. They're cold, but were inflamed? Interesting. Witness to history, the best lines following Gough Whitlam's 1975 dismissal didn't come from Gough, they came from Norman Gunston. And if you follow the link, you'll see them. The president is turning white. Well, his hair is just 44 days into the job, and President Obama is going grey. Mr. Obama's greying is still the flecked variety and appears to wax and wane depending upon when he gets his hair cut, which he does about every 2 weeks. His barber, who goes by only one name, Zarif, takes umbrage with bloggers who alternately claim Mr. Obama, 47, is dyeing his hair grey to appear more distinguished, or dyeing it black to appear younger. I can tell you that his hair is 100% natural, Zarif said. He wouldn't get it colored. Zarif said he is not about to start ripping Mr. Obama. We do not tease about grey at all, he said. Obama's Jew community continues. From Andrew Bolt, no rapist should be free for being black. I confess I misled you last week, says Andrew. I've tried but failed to imagine the circumstances in which a man who breaks into a house and rapes a 4-year-old could escape jail. Police died, cricketers didn't, Andrew points out. On the other hand, 6 Pakistani police died trying to protect the cricketers. Australian and British umpires caught in Tuesday's bloody ambush in the Sri Lankan cricket team have accused Pakistan security forces of leaving them like sitting ducks. Amid mounting speculation, their attackers had an accomplice within the team's security detail. But yes, the special forces that were supposed to be protecting them were the ones that ran away, and the police that were on the spot were the ones that were killed. Too many Pakistanis, a strange theory, illustrated by an even stranger example. The world is overpopulating itself to a catastrophic future of terrorism and climactic disaster, according to a Melbourne University professor of reproductive biology. Professor Roger Short will tell an international conference in Sydney today that it is for the first time in history human activity is outstripping the natural world's ability to cope. The reason, he says, is exploding and uncontrolled population growth. Pakistan was a perfect example of the problem, with rivers of young men with no hope of a modern education, job, or a reasonable income, making them ripe fodder for much greater terrorism than currently seen. It is true that too many people with not enough work or wealth can lead to poverty and trouble, but Holland and Hong Kong are far more densely populated than Pakistan. India and China have far bigger populations, and Bangladesh, once part of Pakistan, is poorer. Yet none share Pakistan's proclivity for terrorism, which seems driven far more by culture rather than population. Put Bryce in her box. Quentin Bryce should be reminded there's room in this country for just one Prime Minister, and she isn't it. Indeed, no one ever voted to make Bryce our Governor General other than the Prime Minister himself. I swear Andrew actually seems hurt by this. He is very protective of our Prime Minister. Lend me your cues. Perhaps less of an orator than a gifted reciter of lines, President Barack Obama doesn't go anywhere without his teleprompter. The textbook-sized panes of glass holding the president's prepared remarks follow him wherever he speaks. Resting on top of a tall, narrow pole, they flank his podium during speeches in the White House's stately parlors. They stood next to him on the floor of a manufacturing plant in Indiana as he pitched his economic stimulus plan. They traveled to the Department of Transportation this week and were in the Capitol Rounda last month, when he paid tribute to Abraham Lincoln in 6-minute prepared remarks. Obama's reliance on the teleprompter is unusual, not only because he's famous for his oratory, but because no other president has used one so consistently and at so many events large and small. Our cash, their holiday. The tax-deductible conference report really needs more scrutiny, says Andrew. Max Mosley, the motorsport boss who won a record privacy payout after being caught on the camera in a sadomasochistic sex orgy with 5 prostitutes, will be one of the star attractions for Australia's top judges and barristers at a tax-deductible European legal conference in London that coincides with the Ashes cricket series in Wimbledon. One option may be to require them to be held either at home or in a third world country that could do with the count dollars. That, of course, would rule out the lovely conferences that Monash University schedules at its own Tuscan palazzo. Hard labour in Queensland. As Labor discovered last year in the Northern Territory and Western Australia, governments would cynically rush to an early election make voters rightfully suspicious. The Liberal National Party has edged ahead of Labor for the first time in Queensland's election campaign, with the latest polls revealing a swing against the Bligh government of more than 5%. In what may be a significant turning point in the campaign, a Galaxy poll has the Liberal National Party leading Labor 51-49 on a 2-party preferred basis, which raises the prospect of Queensland having a hung parliament as the state tries to respond to the economic crisis. And even in this example of a government that has been so inept, that has driven Queensland into the ground, Andrew still can't bring himself to oppose or to suggest that the Labor government isn't going to win the next election. Rudd on making stuff up. From the 7:30 report, Kerry O'Brien, you said at the time of the first $10.4 billion stimulus package that it was the equivalent of 1% of GDP, that it would create 75,000 jobs. Do you now have any evidence of what jobs have been created, or even of what jobs have been saved, or what GDP growth your package has actually produced? Kevin Rudd, well, Kerry, let's be statistically realistic about this. These payments flowed in December. That is about, 2 or 3 months ago. In terms of putting together the complete retrospective analysis, the data isn't simply analytically not possible at this stage. Kerry O'Brien, but isn't it true that it's never really going to be possible to demonstrate it? Kevin Rudd, well, on that basis, you then flip into the camp of opinion which says the data's always incomplete and therefore do nothing. That's right, Kevin. Maybe doing nothing would have been a better option. Welcome to Canada. Canada's National Post reports on an unusual choice of gatekeeper. It is well known that Khaled Muammar wants Ottawa to remove Hamas and Hezbollah from a list of banned organizations and replace them with Israeli Defense Forces. It's well known that the president of the Canadian Arab Federation recently called Jason Kenney, the Minister of Immigration, a professional whore for supporting Israel and criticizing the presence of Hamas and Hezbollah flags at a recent protest, prompting Mr. Kenney to say he would review the CAF's federal funding. But it is less well known that Mr. Muammar spent the 11 years prior to February 2005 sitting as a member of the Immigration Refugee Board deciding whether refugees claimants from such North African countries as Morocco, Egypt, Algeria and Somalia should be allowed to stay in Canada.